Parkinson's disease is a progressive nervous system disorder that affects movement. The disorder causes stiffness and slowing of movement. In early stages, a person's face may show little to no emotion, speech becomes slurred, and the symptoms become worse over time. Treatment options include surgery or medication to improve symptoms by regulating regions of the brain. It cannot currently be cured. The cause is currently unknown, but genes and environmental factors may play a role. Researchers have identified certain genetic mutations that can cause Parkinson's disease, but it is rare that multiple family members have Parkinson's disease. Exposure to toxins or environmental factors may also increase risk of Parkinson's. Researchers have also noted that changes in the brain occur when a person develops Parkinson's. These changes include the presence of Lewy bodies, which are misfolded proteins. Lewy bodies are made up of alpha-synuclein. The Lewy bodies are in a clumped form that cannot be broken down, so the researchers are currently focused on breaking them down artificially. Symptoms begin on one side of the body, which is where they are worse later on. Symptoms include tremors, slow movement, bradykinesia, which leads to regular tasks being more time-consuming. Rigid muscles, painful stiffness of muscles that limit how much a person can move, impaired posture and balance, loss of automatic movement. A person may not be able to make unconscious movements such as blinking and swinging your arms at their sides. Speech changes, writing changes and becomes more difficult. Risk factors include age. Chances to develop increase with age, usually begin around 60. Heredity may increase chances but currently unclear. Sex, men are more likely. Exposure to toxins, ongoing exposure may increase risk. Parkinson's is accompanied by additional problems such as cognitive difficulties such as dementia. This usually occurs at later stages of the disease, also not treatable with medicine. Depression or emotional changes are common in early stages. Other emotional changes include fear, anxiety and loss of motivation, which can be treated. Swallowing problems begin in mid to late stages. Swallowing is slowed, which leads to drooling and makes it difficult to eat. May also experience sleeping disorders. Parkinson's affects the neurotransmitter known as dopamine. Dopamine controls movement, which is why people with Parkinson's are unable to control their movements. In a normal cell, dopamine is able to flow across the synapse, bind to the receptors and produce CAMP, which is a derivative of ATP, which allows for the region of the brain known as the substantia nigra to produce movement of the body. Cells affected by Parkinson's are unable to release the dopamine across the synapse for it to bind to the receptors. There are currently multiple theories as to why this is the case. The most well-accepted theory is that misfolded proteins known as Lewy bodies essentially clog the cell and don't allow for the release of dopamine. These Lewy bodies are difficult to break down, which is what allows them to build up and overwhelm the phagocytic cells. Mitochondria also lose functionality in cells affected with Parkinson's disease. Medical. Treating Parkinson's is very difficult because dopamine breaks down quickly in the body when injected or taken on its own. It needs something to shield it until it reaches the brain. The effects of drugs become less effective as the disease progresses. Carbidopa-levodopa is the most effective treatment. It is a natural chemical that enters the bloodstream. The carbidopa protects the levodopa before it enters the brain and is converted into dopamine. Side effects include lightheadedness and more involuntary movements. Amantadine is something that doctors may prescribe to provide short-term relief from early symptoms. It is given with levodopa to control involuntary movement. Side effects include a purple molting of skin, angle swelling or hallucinations. Anticholinergics are used to control tremors. Side effects include impaired memory, hallucinations, confusion, impaired bladder function. Dopamine agonists, which mimic dopamine effects in brain, not as effective in treating levodopa, can be used at the same time to smooth the off and on effects. MAO-B inhibitors prevent breakdown of brain dopamine and inhibit the brain enzyme MAO-B which metabolizes brain dopamine. Side effects include insomnia, and when added to carbidopa-levodopa it may increase hallucinations. Surgical, deep brain stimulation. Surgeons implant electrodes which are connected to a generator near the chest at the collarbone, sending pulses to the brain which may decrease Parkinson's disease symptoms. Side effects are brain hemorrhage, and usually reserved for those who cannot take levodopa and have heavy symptoms. The stimulation can stop the involuntary movements and reduce rigidity. Can reduce the slowing of movement. Doesn't keep disease from progressing but does help with symptoms.
Hi Larry, how are you?
Come in, come in.
Let's see. How you feeling?
It's been a bit of a rough week.
Really? And the best way to take it is put it under your tongue and rub it in your cheek. Don't do too much, you're going to be asleep all afternoon. You know what you should do? No. Don't try to communicate, just relax. See what happens.
We know from animal experiments that the endogenous cannabinoid system is very important in regulating motor activity, that very type of activity that is impaired in Parkinson's disease. From animal experiments, we also know that boosting certain branches of the endocannabinoid system is helpful in relieving symptoms of Parkinson's. Finally, from anecdotal information, we know that certain patients who smoke marijuana experience relief of their symptoms.
I think you're calmed down.
So quickly.
Isn't that amazing?
He used just a single drop, and his hands afterwards were rock steady, and the dyskinesia left.
My wife's coming back.
It works most of the time.
In fact, it's... Did you guys eat lunch?
Are you hungry now?
20 a.m. Actually,
A person like me could really use marijuana. It makes me pretty angry that I can't get it in my home state.
The number one frustration that I have is knowing that there is this untapped potential that comes from what marijuana is teaching us to generate new medicines, and being stuck because of financial issues or political issues. That is extremely frustrating.
We now know that medical marijuana controls dyskinesia, and yet it's not available to us.